I always say there isn't that many studies of anabolic drugs that people can really refer to. You run out of studies very quickly. And it's not a very interesting subject to study. And actually, researchers are very uninterested in that subject, especially for hypertrophy.
You're exactly. It's all experimental. In other words, all of this is shot in the dark stuff. And what you said is exactly true. They're basing it on previous results, let's say, of similar regimes. That's their only scientific rationale. There is no science behind it at all. And people have to understand that, because the way a lot of people, especially people that are, let's say, and I'm not trying to put them down, let's say they're not as educated in science. If you toss, and I found this myself, and I'm not trying to oppress anyone, if you start to toss around some technical terms, people right away think you know a lot. But that's not necessarily true. I mean, I've run across a lot of bodybuilders, in fact, not the gurus, who use extremely technical terms in relation to how the steroids work and stuff like that, but they don't really know what they're talking about. In other words, they're parroting what they heard from others, but they don't, it's like, it'd be like me seeing something written in Spanish on screen and saying it to you, and I don't even know what I'm saying, but I'm saying it to you. You know what I'm saying? That's basically what they're doing. In other words, just because you can throw a couple of technical terms, and you see this all over YouTube, a lot of videos, these guys will, you have the A2 receptor attached to the serotonin, and they're, this guy, he really knows everything, and the problem is that people will listen to somebody like this and take everything as gospel. He must know, it must be true because he seems to know what he's doing. But it's not always true. This is where, and I always tell people, this is where you have to do a little self-knowledge. If you have any doubt about a statement, research it yourself. Go to Google, look it up yourself before you think anything is gospel, including from me. I mean, I try not to be overly technical, but sometimes I have to be. And if you doubt what I'm saying, I tell this because I'm challenged all the time on statements I made in my YouTube videos or even in my newsletter. And what I'll do is I'll if I have the time, I'll send them the reference. Here's the reference to prove what I'm saying. I'm not making this up. You know what I mean? So that's what most people won't go through that kind of trouble. Instead, if a guy talks, or a woman or whatever, they talk some technical term. I mean, I saw a woman talking recently, and I'm writing an article about this now. Right now, I'm working on an article on using nutrition and exercise to help prevent COVID-19. It's a huge, gigantic article. I've already written like 30 pages. I don't know how long this thing's going to go, but I'm not even halfway finished. It's scary. But anyway, because you got to explain a lot of things, But the point is, I remember seeing an interview where this woman was talking about how intravenous vitamin C, can help prevent, when you first take large amounts on oral C. It was oral C. When you take large amounts at the very start of symptoms of COVID-19, you can prevent it from slipping into the serious complications like ARDS and that kind of thing. And she was using all these technical terms, and even I was fooled. And I said, wow, wait, it makes sense. And I said, holy
shit. Is she a YouTuber?
Yeah, she's always on YouTube.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I said, gee, it does make sense to me because, she had the technical term. And then when I researched it, I found that it was not completely wrong, but not completely right. And I'll just tell you, just so you're curious why. Intravenous C, yes, it can do what she says. But she was talking about oral C. She was talking about taking dosage of 3,000 milligrams of oral C every 2 hours. The problem with that is it greatly exceeds the bowel tolerance of 98% of the population. So it's just going to be excreted out. And that's taken into account that your body does actually absorb more C when you have an infection. A lot of people don't know that. Your body actually increases the C absorption when you have an infection. A lot of people don't know that. But the point is that she was kind of exaggerating. If she would have said intravenous C, she would have been correct. But a lot of people don't have access to IVC. So she was doing it the easy way out. So my point being, her video was inaccurate. But it even had me fooled initially until I actually looked into it. See, that's what I'm saying. I investigated because I was initially convinced that I got to keep this in mind. I got to get that C, in case I get, And then I researched it. I read about 3 studies, including one from China, and I realized it was all intravenous C. There's no evidence that oral C in large doses, could prevent you from slipping into cytokine storm, some of the really bad aspects of COVID-19. But intravenously, there's a National Institute of Health investigation that's going on right now as we speak. That could really do it, but not oral C. See, that's the difference.
And this exists in a variety of fields. It's even in business as well. So, for example, in the field of finance, you often hear people who are financial analysts talk using a jargon, which is similar to what neuroscientists use or medical people use, that someone that's not familiar with it hears someone, it sounds like a different language, and it makes you think that they're so far ahead of you or advanced that you just should submit and just accept whatever they're saying. This happened to me in undergrad as well. I didn't know much about derivatives, and I also had a weaker mathematical knowledge in the beginning. Once I started studying these subjects, I discovered that many of the people who were talking about it didn't know what they're talking about. And in fact, if you ask them a detailed question about any of the terms they're using, they actually don't even know how to define the term. And then this also happened recently to me with the subject of blockchain and cryptocurrencies, which my wife is currently studying. So I noticed she was reading about it. She said, wait a minute, these people actually don't know what they're talking about. I started to ask them in the meetings. They've never read anything about it, and they all recycle this jargon that they receive from each other. So they become a shallower.
Exactly. See how it works in different fields. It's the same thing. There's an expression for that in philosophy. I forget what it's called. Illusion of expertise. That's not the exact term, but the idea that you put too much weight in somebody who seems to have expertise says, you take it as absolute gospel. It's considered a fallacy. I don't remember the exact term.
Authority.
Authority. That's it. Yeah. That's it.
Now, Jerry has a unique thing about you, which is, in academia, they used to say, I remember hearing this from my professors before, that when you do your PhD thesis, if you can't explain your thesis to a common person on the street in 5 minutes, you don't understand it well. And Jerry has this, like he was saying, doesn't speak with jargon in his videos, but speaks in a way that people can understand and only uses the technical terms when necessary, which shows real understanding because you can connect it to daily life. You know what I mean? And for example, I have difficulty doing this because I only have 2 years of studying this kind of stuff. And so I don't have the depth of knowledge to be easy to connect it back into real living. So I'm still stuck in what I'm reading, whereas you have digested it fully in your brain. Yeah, it's very admirable.
I actually was guilty of that. When I first started writing, I was using all the scientific terms with no explanation at all. And I was writing for a guy up at the Weider office, a magazine called Sports Fitness. The editor-in-chief was a famous powerlifter named Fred Hatfield. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He once held the world squat record. And I handed him one of my articles, and he read the first paragraph. It was full of technical terms, And he says, Jerry, this is very good. And I said, he has a PhD. I was impressed with him.
Yes, I've heard of him.
So he said, now, could you tell me, what does that mean in plain English? I said, what? He says, Jerry, you understand it, I understand it, but do you think a guy in the street will be able to understand? You don't explain anything here. You might as well be writing in Greek. And I was crestfallen. I said, but I realized he was right. And right then and there, I changed my writing style, where every time I write a technical term, I don't assume that all the readers understand it. I put a little parenthesis, I'll explain what it is. And I'm not trying to dumb down to my readers. I'm just, not everybody, has the, let's say, science background. And this is the difference between me and a lot of these other digital publications, because a lot of these are being written by guys who are just out of school and they have advanced degrees, but they're still stuck in that kind of scientific writing type of thing, where they're putting p-values. And if you don't know what it's like, you might again be writing it.
People who use p-values don't know what they are actually.
Right. But I just took that out of the hat. But they use all those kinds of expressions, but they don't explain it, and they're losing 75-80% of their readership right off the bat, because most of the people reading this stuff, it's not going to be read by other PhDs. It's going to be read by bodybuilders, lifters, or people at the health who might not have that science background. And not only that, but when you write like that, I was surprised to learn, you actually make people angry because they think that you're trying to show how intellectual you are and you're making fun of them. This is the way you interpret that, because they can't understand what you're saying. So they actually resent you and they don't want to read your article after that. I know it sounds funny. That's the way the human brain works.